In this video, we're going to give you a brief introduction to the Panasonic AU-EVA1, or as I call it, the EVA1 camcorder, Panasonic's new compact cinema camcorder with a Super 35 sensor. First up, with the lens. The lens mount is a Canon EF lens mount. That's pretty much the most popular lens mount in the history of still photography cameras. Pretty much any EF mount lens can be used on the EVA1 camcorder. Not all lenses will be fully compatible. Many of the EF lenses are electronic, and you want an electronic lens so you can control the iris and use the one-push autofocus here. So you're going to have to check on Panasonic's website for compatibility. They have a link where they've run a number of tests on which lenses are compatible with the EVA1. That doesn't mean that if a lens isn't on that list, it's not compatible. It just means maybe they haven't gotten around to testing it yet, but they'll let you know what's compatible. Besides EF lenses, you can actually get some other type of lenses too. I mean, Canon EFS lenses may or may not fit depending on the lens manufacturer. EFS is made for APS-C size camcorders, slightly smaller frame size, which is about the same frame size as a Super 35 camera. So if your EFS lens mount will fit, if there's no protrusion on the lens to keep it from mounting to an EF body, because this is an EF body, then you can use those lenses. Additionally, you can get an adapter to use Nikon mount lenses. Lots and lots of Nikon lenses out there. These would be strictly manual lenses, but you can adapt them and use them. And another way you can go, there's a company that's producing a aftermarket PL mount modification for the camera, so you can actually replace the EF mount with a PL mount and use cinema PL lenses. Moving over to the control side of the camcorder, first thing we got here is the iris wheel. Simple control for electronic lenses, rotate up or down, you can control the iris, and if you press the button in, that toggles between automatic iris or manual iris control. And you have buttons here for the neutral density filters. There are 3 layers of neutral density filter plus clear, and so you just go up a layer or down a layer with each press, so anywhere from 1/16 up to 1/64 neutral density. Got the user toggle switch here. It's a little bit different than handheld Panasonics have done it before. Normally you'd have a bunch of switches down here, but with this switch you can control the white balance, or you control the gain, or you can set it to be a user controlled feature. If you go into the menus and set the user toggle switch, you can use the wheel to control frame rate or the shutter speed or dial in a specific ISO that you want. There's a lot of different features you can control through the user toggle switch. One thing that people ask when they're first using this camcorder is how come they can't white balance it? There is a white balance button on the front here, and it does work exactly like the prior Panasonics, except you need to do one additional step. When you go to the white balance setting, you need to rotate the wheel down to where the white balance setting is AWB memory. If it's anything else, you can't use the automatic white balance button. But if it's set to AWB memory, then you can take a manual white balance just like you always used to. You've got a number of user buttons. There are actually 9 user buttons in total. So user 1, nice big round button, easy to find when you're behind the camera. You find it by touch. User 2 is a user button, and when you're in normal camera mode, it works as a user button, but it also has the word view written above it. What that means is if you were using the LCD for playback purposes or looking at the home screen, which we'll get to in a minute, anyway, not looking at the live camera feed, then with one press of this button, you can get back to the live camera feed. This changes you out of whatever mode you're in and back to live camera feed. And the user 3 button down here says info on it, which again, when you're in live camera mode, that's user button 3. But if you're in something other than live camera mode, for example, if you're in playback and you're looking at a bunch of thumbnails and you want to know more information about a specific thumbnail, then whichever thumbnail you've selected, you can press the info button and it will bring up a lot of information, details on that clip, what codec it was shot in, what day it was shot on, all sorts of information like that. Then there are 2 more user buttons here on the side that are pre-programmed, one for electronic image stabilization and one for the waveform monitor. A lot of lenses come with optical image stabilization built in. They're image stabilized lenses. They usually say IS in the name. And for example, this Sigma Art lens has a switch on it that lets you enable or disable optical image stabilization. Well, some lenses don't have image stabilization, or maybe you're using a non-electronic lens like a PL mount lens, or like I mentioned earlier, maybe a Nikon adapted lens. Those won't have access to optical image stabilization. but you can still go electronic. The electronic image stabilization is electronic. It's not necessarily going to deliver as perfect a results as optical image stabilization would, but it's a great feature to have if the lens that you have doesn't have image stabilization on it. So EIS, definitely want to have access to that. Waveform monitor is an utterly fantastic exposure tool. I would not be without the waveform monitor. I use it on every shot. So you could reprogram that to something else, but I don't so I know why you'd want to. The thumbnail button. This is how you access playing back clips. You press the thumbnail button and it brings up little icons, little thumbnails of all the clips that are on your memory cards. It'll show all the clips that are in MOV format or all the clips that are in AV-CHD format, depending on which mode you recorded them in or which mode the camera is currently in. You can't see both MOV and AV-CHD clips at the same time. So if you want to see the other type of clip, you'd have to go into the camera menus, change your recording format to AV-CHD, and then come back to the thumbnails, and then you'd be able to see all your AV-CHD clips. The home button. This is the stuff. We're going to talk about this more in the next video on menus, but the home screen is fantastic. It's a way to see all the information that the camera is currently configured to and be able to access and change those parameters at the touch of a finger. So the home screen, get used to that. And the home screen is an example. You may have the camera in home screen and you want to be able to go back to the view screen, for the live feed, or up to the home screen, or to the thumbnail screen. Those are the three main modes of operation. The next three buttons, well, one's a wheel. I'm going to take them all together because they're all used together, which is the menu button, the menu wheel, and the exit button. This is how you access and control the menus. Press the menu button to bring them up. You use the menu wheel to scroll throughout the menu, and you press the wheel in to make a selection, and you press the exit button to exit up one layer of menus or exit the menus completely. It's not the only way you can control the menus, but it is the main way. These controls are duplicated on the hand grip, so you have a wheel, an exit, and a menu button on the hand grip. You can also control just about all those features from the touchscreen. You go into the menus with the menu button, but from then on out, you can select by just touching the screen. Or there's even a fourth way to control the menus, which is to use a tablet, an iOS tablet or an Android tablet or even a phone, and you can download the EVA ROP app and control the camera remotely, and not just shutter speed and ISO, but actually get into the menus and make any change. You really have pretty much complete control of the camera through that. So that's 4 different ways that you can access the menus. All right, next to the menu buttons, we have the audio controls where you can choose automatic or manual level control. So on the camera, you've got proper volume controls, and actually in the menus, you have full control over whether you have a low cut filter in place, or you're using the limiter, or you have phantom power going out, or you're changing the gain level of the signal that's coming in. You've got full audio control in the menus. Up here, this last button that we're going to talk about is the lock switch. Let's say you configure the camera and there's a lot of buttons and a lot of things you could press, and you don't want to press anything. You've got it exactly right. Let's not mess with it. You can lock the side of the camera, and all these buttons can be disabled, so nobody can mess up what you've configured. Or you can selectively choose which of any of the buttons will be enabled or disabled when you slide the lock switch. So that's a nice feature. Back here in the back, 2 memory card slots, which can be used simultaneously to record the same onto both cards, or it can roll from one card over to the other, or they can be treated individually. You use industry standard SDXC cards. You want to get V60 if at all possible. All the recording codecs in the camera can be recorded to a V60 memory card. Battery, it is backwards compatible with the earlier Panasonic batteries dating all the way back to at least the DVX100. You can use those. You don't necessarily want to, because the new series of batteries have a little battery graph that will show you whether it's charged and how much it's charged. But the great thing about these new batteries is they charge twice as fast as the old ones do. The ports on the back, we got, of course, a normal headphone jack. We have an SDI out. This is a 6G SDI, so this can output 4K or ultra high definition up to 30 frames per second. So if you're doing a 24 frame film shoot, yes, you can record externally through the SD and get the full 10-bit 422 up to 30 frames per second out of the SDI. You also have an HDMI port, which can do 4K up to 60 frames per second. Another thing the SDI port can do, it can output raw video. If you have a recorder that's compatible with the EVA1 and you connect this SDI port to that recorder, you can actually record the raw sensor feed at a full 5.7K, not just 4K. I mean, we're talking about twice as much data as a 4K stream, 5.7K up to 30 frames, or 4K up to 60 frames, or high-speed 2K up to 240 frames per second raw. It's pretty cool. You have a proper timecode in and out jack, so you can synchronize to other camcorders, to standard XLR ports for your audio, and we have an input for the LCD. The LCD is pretty awesome. Very sharp, very crisp. You can reposition it just about anywhere because it comes with a little tiny rail, and so you can remove the LCD and you can mount it on the back of the camera maybe if you want to use it like a traditional viewfinder, or maybe you mount it on the front of the camera because you want to use it on a shoulder mount, or maybe you want to take it entirely off because you're flying the camera on a drone or something and you don't need an LCD at all. The LCD comes with a hood, which is really necessary in daylight exteriors. The LCD is very reflective, so it's a little challenging to see in broad daylight unless you at least have the hood on it. One last section. Under this door, 2 USB ports. One of them is a service port. You don't need to worry about it. But the other one, you can plug in a wireless adapter, and that way you can use the remote control that I was talking about from an iPad or an Android tablet or something like that. Right here is a USB 2 port for an optional AJ-WM50 wireless network control adapter. Moving on to the right side, we've got the hand grip, which is fully rotatable, so you can choose the angle that you want to shoot at, or hold it overhead or whichever, and it's also removable. So you can remove the hand grip to strip the camera down even smaller. This cable runs into a jack that says remote. So technically this is a remote control, although it's a very, very short cable. It's a short remote control. I guess you can get an extension cable for that and actually use this as a remote control. It has a record button, it has a menu button, it has a exit button, it has a menu selectable wheel, and it has another user button. Here's where user 9 is, in case you're losing track of where all your user buttons are. There are 9 of them. That's user 9. This remote jack can take third-party accessory controllers to provide a tremendous amount of control. It doesn't take DVX 100, AF 100, DVX 200 compatible remote controls. It takes a very popular style of remote control that's available from third-party manufacturers, but that can give you a lot of control. And you've got mounting holes all over the camera. They're standard 1/4 20 or 3/8 inch sockets. You can put the handle on the left side, right side, the center, remove the handle entirely. You could mount the handle upside down. You can mount in every which way. This here is a microphone holder. So it comes with a microphone holder you can attach on here. If you're not using it, obviously you just keep the camera stripped down a little bit, like I've got it here, but you can install a microphone holder there as well. That's the EVA1. I hope you found this informative and helpful. Stay tuned to the rest of the videos in this series for a lot more tips and tricks on how to use your EVA1 camcorder.
Panasonic